All right, welcome everybody to the Kickoff College Football or Wyatt Zang's College Football Show. I keep saying that. I've said that like 4 times now, but we are live for episode number 30. We got 5 solid segments to dive into. We have quite a bit, and they're going to be some fun segments. But before we do that, I do want to mention we made our top 10 quarterbacks list for 2026, and we did that. I want to say Saturday. Yeah, Saturday I released that video, so it's on the channel. I highly recommend that you guys go check it out. It was a really good video. Released my top 10. I want you guys to tell me, obviously after the live show's over, but after that's over, head over to the YouTube channel and let me know what you guys thought of that list. I'm very curious what you guys thought of that. Again, I thought it was perfect, obviously, because it was my list, but I'm curious what you guys thought of that. And yeah, like I said, we got a jam-packed show to dive into. We got a lot of stuff on tap. We have which teams will be better or worse in 2026. So I have, I think, 4 teams I'm going to be going over to talk about whether they're going to be better or worse in 2026, whether they have a tougher schedule or what's going to prevent them from being better, or are they going to be better? So we're gonna talk about that, plus the biggest games in 2026. What games stand out to me? This is going to be part 1. We're gonna probably have like 3 different parts of this segment series. So again, there's gonna be games like Ohio State, Michigan that aren't on this list. Obviously, we'll get to those. Those will be obviously they're on the list, but we'll get to them later. So I have some games I'm looking out for. I got like 7 of them I think I'm going over, and then we're gonna be doing a Dan Lanning approval rating. So on my YouTube channel, I put out a poll talking about whether or not you guys approve of Dan Lanning so far at Oregon. I will get to the percentage of yeses versus nos, and I'll also get to my take on Dan Lanning. And last but not least, Florida program preview and bold predictions. We have a batch of bold predictions from you guys. You guys sent me your bold predictions, and we're going to talk about them. We got like 5, I think we're talking about. So it is a loaded show. I cannot wait to jump into it. So let's go ahead and do it. First segment, here we go. It's going to be a great segment. Which teams are better or worse in college football in 2026? I got to say, these 4 teams, it was tough to put some of them on here, but we'll get to them here now. What teams will be better or worse in 2026? Number 1 I have is Georgia. Will they be better or worse? Because Georgia did not have, the season that everyone thought they were going to have this past year. Now, they made it to the playoffs, so obviously that's not like, that's not anything out of the ordinary. They make the playoffs every year, but people expected a lot more from Georgia, I feel like. They won the SEC championship. So you're saying Georgia had a down year while also winning the SEC championship? Yes, that's what I am saying. But I do think that there is a lot higher potential for this Georgia team this year to make a deeper playoff run. They went like 12-1, 12-2 if you count the playoff loss. But I just think that there's a lot more, experience and depth on this Georgia team, especially in 2026 here. So Georgia, like I said, they lost to Alabama in the regular season, came back and beat them in the SEC championship. They also lost to Ole Miss, 39-34 in the conference, or in the second round of the college football playoff. Conference champions, Gunnar Stockton. Gunnar Stockton's a player I wanted to talk about first in this segment because Gunnar Stockton is the key to Georgia this year. It is whether or not the quarterback there can have success. If he can have success in 2026 and he can have a solid year, be a top 10 quarterback, then I think Georgia's got real potential to be a national title contender. Now, they're a national title contender every year, but I'm just curious whether or not they can really contend. Like, are they going to be in December, that team that you're like, look out for them? They weren't really that this year, so I'm looking out for that next year. He, first season as the Georgia starter last year, I think he did phenomenal. At least for his first year, he did phenomenal. I expect a lot more from him in 2026. I do think he'll be able to deliver, so I do think he'll be a better quarterback than he was. So that's going to help. And then another thing is Nate Frazier. Nate Frazier, in 2025, he's not returning for 2026, but in 2025, he was a solid year at running back. What are they going to have at running back moving forward? Are they going to be as good? Can they keep that going? Nate Frazier had 947 yards on the ground last year. can Mike Bobo and that offense have a solid running game? That's the question. All right, now as we dive into what 2026 is going to be. What does 2026 look like for Georgia? Well, their over-under is 9.5 wins. So relatively low. I just feel like that seems oddly low for Georgia, especially the last 5 years, how good they've been, last 6 years, honestly, of how good and dominant this team has been every single year. It's hard to, you don't really see a down year from Georgia. So give me Georgia probably over 9.5 wins in my opinion. I'll get to my prediction here in a second, but their schedule. What does their schedule allow Georgia to do? Well, Georgia's schedule is nothing that's easy. They don't have the easiest schedule in the world, but we'll jump into what their schedule looks like here in a second. It is Tennessee State at home. That is their first game. That is one I'll be looking out for just to kind of see how explosive this offense can be. I'm excited for Georgia. Now, again, it's Tennessee State in week 1, so let's not have that high of expectations. Western Kentucky in week 2, and then they go to at Arkansas. That's their first, all due respect to Tennessee State and Western Kentucky, but Arkansas is their first actual, conference game, but actual game where they're gonna, have to play good to win. Again, they'll probably beat Arkansas, but let's just say it's not a gimme. There's no gimme games on this schedule. There's their schedule graphic right now. They're on the screen. I'll pop it up for you guys. But yeah, versus Oklahoma, they have to take on Oklahoma. That is a tough matchup, especially for your 4th game. So again, that matchup plus right after that, they go to Vanderbilt. So Vanderbilt is not a tough one either. So when I look at those 2 games back to back, I think, all right, if they can get past Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, new quarterback, hopefully they can get past Vanderbilt. So at that time, they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-0, 6-0. They're 5-0 at that point. Then they got at Alabama. That Alabama game is going to determine the season because it is at Alabama. So it is no easy game whatsoever. So I'm very curious what the season's going to be looking like at Alabama. Are they a 1-loss team? Are they a 2-loss team? Are they undefeated? What does Georgia look like going to Alabama? Well, in my estimation, they're undefeated. But we'll see what other people think. All right, after that, they have Auburn at home, Florida at home. 2 games I think they can win. Florida, we don't know what their quarterback situation is, but we're actually talking about them at the end of the show. And then they have at Ole Miss. Again, that's a game I'm going to be looking out for. It's at Ole Miss, so that's going to be tougher to go to Ole Miss. But I'm looking out for that because I think Ole Miss can be a sneaky contender. Here's why. Because Trinidad Chambliss is coming back, number 1. So with Trinidad Chambliss coming back, that is a huge, huge thing for Ole Miss. Thought it was going to be Deuce Knight starting. It's Trinidad Chambliss. So Ole Miss's, team stock and team potential goes way up. The fact that Trinidad Chambliss is coming back. So in my opinion, Ole Miss is going to be a tough one. So as we keep looking along at the schedule, they have 3 games remaining. That is Missouri at home, at South Carolina. That I have circled. You might be thinking, well, why? Because that is, in my opinion, a sleeper game. That is the game that I like to call, I don't have a name for it, but I'm just going to say that's the type of game where you just can't let your guard down. You cannot let your guard down because South Carolina is the team with Lenore Sellers coming back that could sneak in, actually they're not going to Georgia. Georgia's coming to them. So Georgia could come in there thinking, all right, we got to win. We'll, get ready for Georgia Tech at the end of the year. Their mind is past South Carolina. Going to Columbus, South Carolina is not an easy place to play. Just ask a lot of teams. It is not easy. So I think that given that they have to play South Carolina that late in the season, I think that's going to be a sleeper game. So look out for potentially an upset. I'm not calling for the upset, potentially an upset there. And then you got Georgia Tech. You got Georgia Tech at the end of the year, and that game is always, a good game. So what is my Georgia prediction? Well, Dog Nation, that is Georgia's official team site, has them projected at 11-1 and losing to Alabama. So that's respectable. My prediction is 10-2. I see 2 losses on the schedule. I think I see an Alabama or Oklahoma loss. I see a loss somewhere there. I also see a loss somewhere between Florida, Auburn, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. 4 games that are tough. They're not like losable, but I think they're tough. I think at Ole Miss is maybe one of the toughest games they have to play this year. You look at Florida, that game's never a gimme. It's, neutral site in Jacksonville, so they have a tough schedule. So give me 10-2, and then best case scenario is obviously 12-0. I think Georgia has an undefeated season in their cards, but worst case scenario is at 8-4. So Georgia's not like the worst team. I mean, if everything fails, 8-4 is not that bad. All right, that is Georgia. Next is Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a team that we'll be going to be talking about whether they're better or worse in 2026. I think they're going to be, actually, my honest opinion, I think Notre Dame's going to be better. I think they're going to be better than 10-2. That's my opinion. They were 10-2 record. They started 0-2 this past year. So in 2025, they started 0-2. They lost to Miami and Texas A&M. That was Miami 24-27, A&M 40-41. So that was an equivalent of 4 points. They lost to 2 teams in the first 2 weeks by 4 points. Insane. Jeremiah Love is the key player from this past year that everyone's talking about. What is Jeremiah Love? What is he going to be for this team? How good is he going to be? Jeremiah Love, I think, can be really good in the NFL. He was really good in 2025. I think he's going to be a phenomenal player in the NFL, depending on where he goes, but they don't have him in 2026. Jeremiah Love is gone. He rushed for 1,300 yards, 21 touchdowns. He was a Heisman finalist. He's not there. But you know who is there? C.J. Carr. C.J. Carr is going to be a phenomenal player. I think he's going to be one of the better players in college football in terms of how important he's going to be. I think he's Notre Dame's team this year, C.J. Carr. If C.J. Carr fails, I think Notre Dame fails. It might be crazy. If you're a Notre Dame fan, you might be thinking, that's crazy. There's no way. I don't know, man. I mean, he had 2,700 yards. It was his first, year as a starter for Notre Dame. So in 2025, here's a bright thing on this. On this sheet of paper, if you want to look at something on the bright side, they averaged 42 points per game in 2025. That is good for second nationally. My question is, when you go into 2026, will their offense be just as good? Will it be kind of like, will it be better? Could it be number 1? Or will it take a step back? Will it be 5? Which, again, 5's not horrible, but will it be mid? Like, what if their offense is 30-plus in terms of ranking? Well, then you come to the point of how good is your defense. So, 2026. Let's look at their schedule real quick. They don't have an easy schedule, or they do have an easy schedule, by a lot of metrics. They have Wisconsin, Rice, and Michigan State all at home to start the season. You start off straight 3 at-home games, and it's against 3 easy teams. So give me 3 wins there. Purdue, North Carolina, that's both away games. 2 games I think they can win. Stanford, I think that's a win at home. At BYU, it's a tough game, I guess you could say. If you're listening on a podcast, you did the thing with my fingers, tough game. But I don't think it's that. They'll be favored by 10 points probably. They're probably going to win that one. Navy, probably a win. They'll always give them a tough game, but I think it'll be a win. Miami, it's at home this year. I still think they're going to be like a 6 to 7 point favorite. So, it's when you look at their schedule top to bottom, I don't see many more than 1 loss. I really don't. They got 2 decently tough games. They have Boston College at home. They have SMU at home. I think that's a sneaky tough game. I have that written down as a sneaky game. SMU could surprise. And then at Syracuse to end the year. This isn't like a season where Notre Dame's going to be, struggling to find wins. They're going to be struggling to find, like last year, they struggled to find wins. I don't think they're going to have that problem this year. The problem they're going to have this coming year in 2027 is going to be struggling to find quality wins for their resume. Because if they lose to, let's say, Miami, when they go to the committee and they say, all right, we in the playoff 11-1, the committee looks at you and says, what are your top wins? What's your best win? Notre Dame says, BYU. We beat BYU. And the committee goes, all right. Anything else? SMU, we got to win against SMU. Beat Navy, tough team. Stanford, beat them. Went at North Carolina, beat them. And then the committee's just over there like, can you tell me the tough games? Are you gonna tell me the tough games here? You only mentioned one. They're gonna struggle to find quality wins. I mean, last year they had Miami and Texas A&M. If they would have won those, they would have been the best team in the country, 12-0 probably with those kind of wins. Well, maybe Indiana, Ohio State would have been above them, but they would have been in the playoffs, no doubt, if they went 1-for-1 there. There's no quality wins here except for Miami, and at BYU's an average win. All due respect to BYU, but it's not nothing out of crazy. So 247 Sports has their record prediction at 12-0. The Irish Tribute, which is their website, has their record at 12-0. CBS Sports has their record at between 10-2 and 11-1. So it sees the Miami loss in like a BYU or a Navy or an SMU type loss. And then ESPN 10-2, 11-1. What do I have my prediction at? I have my prediction at 11-1. I think that there's a loss on here. It's tough to predict a team to go undefeated. It really is, especially in this world of college football. It's tough to pick a team to go undefeated. So give me Notre Dame at 11-1. Give me them as better in 2026 and 2027. So that is two teams I think will be better. What about these next two teams? We'll see. The next team is, in fact, Texas A&M Aggies. Will Texas A&M be better or worse in 2026? Well, the question is, what will they be offensively? Because a lot of people look at me, or a lot of people look at Texas A&M, and they say, well, I mean, Marcel Reed last year, was all right. It wasn't, phenomenal the last 3 games. Like, he was all right. Well, what if we get a better Marcel Reed? Well, then you're talking better. Texas A&M is probably going to be better. But what if we get a worse Marcel Reed? So I actually have a lot of questions around Texas A&M. They have high-end talent. That remains consistent. They got defensive front. They got an offensive consistency. And they got depth in their SEC schedule. There's a lot of depth in their schedule. We'll go over their schedule here in a second. I think I have. I actually don't have their schedule. But, all right, well, I don't have their schedule, but their schedule is not easy. They have to play Texas at the end of the year. They have to play some tough games. Well, I think the program is at a point where they're satisfied with last year. I think you have to be. Texas A&M made the playoffs for the first time. There's a bug in here. Texas A&M made the playoffs for the first time. You have to be satisfied with, with their performance this past year, because they never made the playoffs, and they did for the first time last year. So you have to be, at least thinking, all right, we had a good season last year, so you got to still be on the highs from last season. Well, what is the fan base vibe? Let's take a quick temperature. Well, the fan base vibe is hopeful but skeptical. That sums up Texas A&M in my opinion. They're hopeful for a good season, but they're skeptical on what they're going to get. I think Texas A&M is one of those fan bases that could easily be frustrated. So a lot could go wrong here for Texas A&M, but a lot could go right. So give me them at 9-3 for 2026. Give me them slightly worse. So they're unfortunately going to be the first team on this list that I don't have as better. So yeah, unfortunately they're going to be worse, but it's all right. It's fine. All right, next is USC. USC is coming off of a decent year. They were top. I like to say top 15, but we'll say top 20 per, finish at the end of the year there. They finished 9-3. I don't think they won their bowl game, but we don't count. We don't need to talk about that for their record. So they finished 9-3. Well, where do I have USC? First, before I give my prediction, they have offensive talent. They're keeping their talent at quarterback with Jade Mayavi. He's coming back. He was actually number 10 in my top 10 quarterbacks rankings, so he's coming back. They lost defensive coordinator D'Anton Lynn, so that is not easy to lose one of the better, defense coordinators in college football. But they're bringing in Gary Patterson, so he is going to be a phenomenal defensive coordinator. Had success at TCU. I think he's going to, be able to build this defense and keep them on the right track because they were building. D'Anton Lynn really built that defense up. So I think Gary Patterson's going to be able to really keep that defense on, the uptick. So I think they'll be fine there. What do I have their record prediction at? I have them sitting at 8-4/9-3. I think they're going to be a mid-tier program. I don't think they're going to be anything that like really jumps out at you, but I don't think they're going to be like horrible. I don't think they're going to be one of the teams that's like, wow, they really took a step back. I think they're going to be around the same record because they have a tough schedule. They got a really tough schedule. They got a lot of big games in their schedule. Now, before we end the segment, what is the fan base vibe around USC? It is impatient. I wrote that. They want success this season, and I totally agree. There's no reason why Lincoln Riley doesn't get them success. They almost deserve success at this point because it's been, I don't even know how long Lincoln Riley's been there, like 4 years, I want to say. It's been like 4 years. It's time for some winning. So if you can get 10-2 out of USC, maybe push for the playoffs, that's good. 8-4, 9-3, I would call that worse. So I think USC is going to be around the same to worse in 2026. But I do think there's potential there. So that is my top teams, or that is my better or worse teams in 2026. Stay tuned next week. We'll either do this segment next week again or 2 weeks from now. But yeah, that is my better or worse teams in 2026. It's a fun segment to do there. It's healthy to do that segment every once in a while, Just take a step back and be like, all right, which teams got potential here, So that was always good to check that out. Someone in the live chat said hello. I'll go ahead and get back to you here. I'm just going to say, how's it going? Thanks for watching. Boom. You got to give support to everyone in the live chat. You got to give some support. So, all right. Thank you guys for watching, by the way. I really appreciate it. Numbers have been kind of slow on the channel, but since we actually moved channels. If you're new to the channel, we actually used to have, you'll hear it at the beginning of the intro. Sometimes I say Kickoff College Football Show. That's what it used to be called on a separate channel. But then I was like, well, this channel has resources and we can do more with this channel. So I moved the show to this channel. And ever since, of course, numbers are going to go down a little bit. Viewers are still finding the channel. So, but I appreciate you guys for tuning in. We got, a decent amount live, actually. So, I mean, it's not bad. It's definitely not bad. We got a decent amount live. So, appreciate you guys for tuning in. All right. We got a fun segment to do here in a second. All right. What are the biggest games in 2026 in college football? We had some banger games last year. You had Ohio State, Texas, start of the season. You had Michigan, Oklahoma was a great game last year. Notre Dame, Miami was a great game last year. Texas A&M, Notre Dame was a great game last year. And that is only the first 2 weeks of the season. You had Ohio State, Michigan. That was a great game. Bama, Georgia, phenomenal game. You had Indiana, Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship. You had Indiana versus Penn State in the regular season. Came down to the wire. You had Oregon versus Indiana. Phenomenal. You could go on and on. On and on. So many good games. Well, what are some games I'm keeping an eye on in 2026? I have 5 games, 5 or 6 games I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to do this segment probably 2 or 3 times. This is not in the show, but 2 or 3 times within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So, what is my first big game? Let's start in week 1. Texas, actually, no, sorry, this is week 2. This is week 2 this year. Ohio State versus Texas. This game is it's at Texas. It's in Austin this year, so it's going to be a tough game for both teams. Last year, this game was played, in Columbus, so, it's going to be a tough game, like I said. Ohio State traveling to Austin, Texas. Arch Manning coming off of an average season last year. I think he's going to be better. We'll see. Julian Sands coming off of a great season, going to be more experienced. Jeremiah Smith is just a monster. Cam Coleman on Texas, going to be a fun matchup. Arch Manning and Cam Coleman versus Jeremiah Smith and Julian Sands. It's going to be a fun matchup. I cannot wait to see that. That is for sure. Well, what are some other big games? Well, actually, before we do that, I do want to talk about one thing I wrote down about this game was this has to be one of the biggest games of college football because This is the top team in the Big Ten versus the top team in the SEC. So that's one of the reasons I had it as such a big game. I mean, when you look at both teams' schedules too, like this is just, you want to win this game. Like you want to win this. You do not want to start your season in week 2 with a loss. That is just not how you want to, it's not how you draw it up. So Ohio State's hoping for a win. Texas is hoping for a win, but only one team can win. So we'll see what happens there. All right, next game is LSU at Clemson. This is a week 1 matchup. This is going to be a phenomenal game. I cannot wait for this game because these two teams are in the same situation. I think Clemson more so because LSU just fired their coach and brought in Lane Kiffin, so it's kind of renews the program in terms of, fans being impatient. So LSU takes on Clemson in week 1. LSU brings in new head coach Lane Kiffin. Clemson has still Dabo Swinney. Nothing has changed there. So what's the big implications on this game? Well, for Dabo Swinney, more so, it's almost like a win now for Dabo Swinney. It's like you're kind of running out of time. Now, don't get me wrong. Dabo Swinney is one of the greatest head coaches in college football. He's up there with Nick Saban because he went head-to-head with Nick Saban and won 2 national championships. He was like 2-2 against him. So give me Clemson as the team that needs to win this game more. In the other game, it was kind of 50-50, more Texas. I think in the last game, it was more Texas that needed to win this game. In this game, it is Clemson because Dabo Swinney needs to win. It's not like he's at risk of getting fired. Dabo's never going to get fired. But if he doesn't win, I don't know if Dabo will retire or not. But yeah, big game in college football. Big game. All right, next one is LSU still. This is a week 3 matchup. Again, I am very excited about this game because 2 things. Number 1, LSU versus Ole Miss. That translation for you, Lane Kiffin versus Ole Miss. That is insane. I cannot wait for this matchup. And number 2 is it is in Ole Miss's home field. So they are going to Ole Miss's home stadium. That is just, it's going to be electric. It's going to be absolutely electric. I cannot wait for this game because I want to see Lane Kiffin go up against Ole Miss. Ole Miss fans are like, oh, Lane Kiffin's the best coach. He built this program. And in 2 seconds, they turned into saying, wow, Lane Kiffin, you really suck. You left us. We just want to kill you in this game now. It's going to be so much hatred. It's what college football should be. Let's be honest. It's what college football should be. Next is Ohio State and Indiana. This game, a rematch. A rematch from the Big Ten Championship this past year. It's going to be a great game. I cannot wait for it. Again, this game, so much on the line for both teams because both teams, I'd say more so Ohio State because Indiana's coming off this phenomenal season and teams are kind of like, well, I mean, it is what it is. Like we don't do as good this season. We don't do as good. We just won the national championship. So we're content. Indiana fans don't really care what happens. I mean, they care, but it's like we go 8-4. Fine. All right, that's fine. We just won the national championship. That doesn't really matter that much. Ohio State is looking at it and saying, we kind of need to win this game, especially if you lose to Texas. If Ohio State loses to Texas with this schedule, it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one. Ryan Day, you're going to have to really just get your team ready. Get your team in a nice, get in a foxhole with your team because it's going to be a tough season, man. It's going to be a tough season, especially if you lose to Texas. And this game is not going to be any easier. All right, next game is Notre Dame and Miami. This is the last game we'll talk about in this. We got one more. We got 2 more. We got this one and one more. Sorry. Notre Dame, Miami. Okay, there it is. Notre Dame, Miami. This is going to be a phenomenal game because I think personally that it's one of those vibes where you're like, man, who needs it more? We just talked about it with the other game. Same situation with this game. Which team needs it more? When I look at it, I think in my mind Notre Dame needs it more because Miami's coming off of a national championship runner-up, appearance in last season. So I think Notre Dame needs it more because I think Notre Dame needs to win a lot more this year than Miami does because Marcus Freeman is not on the hot seat whatsoever. It's not what I'm saying here, but I'm saying Notre Dame missed the playoffs last year. They kind of need to win it. Or not win it all, but they kind of need to, win this game and win games and get to the playoff and make some noise in the playoff. You don't have to win a national championship. Just make some noise in the playoff. So that's why I think Notre Dame needs to win more. And then this next game. Wow, is this going to be a good game? I cannot wait for this game. It's Oklahoma, Michigan, by the way, for you guys listening on podcast. When you break down what this game is going to mean for both teams, you've John Mateer versus Bryce Underwood. It is so, the tension is going to be so high on both these teams. Michigan is kind of the point where they're like, 2023 was a long time ago. 2023 was a long time ago. Kyle Whittingham is here, though. So Kyle Whittingham is almost like new blood for Michigan. But here's the thing. Brent Venables, coming off of a playoff appearance this past year, kind of renewed himself. Fans are loving him now. So you got two coaches. You got two guys here that both really want the win. Both really don't want to start in week 2 with a loss, be 1-1. But both teams kind of need to win. One team has to lose. So which team's going to lose? I'm not predicting the game now, but I'm saying the question is, what team needs to win more? At this moment, I don't know, but which team needs to win more? That's the question that we really need to ask ourselves. When you look at Michigan's schedule, you have Penn State, you have Iowa, you have Oklahoma, you have Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State. Tough schedule. You look at Oklahoma's schedule, they have Georgia, Michigan, Texas, South Carolina is going to be a tough game. At Florida, Ole Miss, A&M. At Missouri is not going to be easy. So you have so many tough games on both schedules. It's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough. Both teams kind of need this win. Both teams really need the win. So, again, those are my, early games I'm looking out for in 2026 that are going to be very high pressure. Very high pressure. But also, I will be doing this segment again. I'll do probably 2 more episodes of this segment because there's just so many big games of college football nowadays. It's awesome. It's great. So good. So good. All right. That was wow, the slide switch there. Technical issue real quick. That was funny. We got 3 more segments actually, bold predictions at the end. Keep forgetting about bold predictions. I cannot wait for bold predictions. That's kind of what I've been, waiting for this entire week because I was debating whether or not to do this show on Thursday because I had it prepped on Thursday and ready to go, and I was like, I'm gonna do it on Thursday or Friday. I'm gonna do 2 shows this week. Well, I decided to wait, and I probably wish I would have done that on Friday. But turns out we had the college football top 10 quarterback rankings, so that we did that on Saturday. So that kind of gave you guys some content on the weekend. Because when we do 1 show a week, we have our 1 show on Monday, and then I post I cut up the the videos in individual segments, and then I post those, and those are we kind of get through them by Thursday, and we post some shorts throughout there too. But then it's the weekend we kind of don't have content. So I wanted to put that out. And again, maybe I'll try to ration the videos. I don't know. We'll see. But I'd like to put some kind of content out on the weekends, whether it's a YouTube short of breaking news or something. But yeah. All right. Let's jump into our next segment. It's a fun one. What is the approval of Dan Lanning at Oregon? And when I say a lot, I mean a lot of different opinions about Dan Lanning at Oregon right now. You have the opinion that a lot of people have, and it is Dan Lanning has done a lot at Oregon. He's done a lot of winning, and he's really brought this program up, and it's not like Oregon was bad when they got there, but they weren't great. They weren't to their potential. So a lot of people say Dan Lanning is, what I just said, and a lot of other people say, well, what has he won? The infamous. What has he won? I mean, what has he won? He hasn't won a championship. He won a Big Ten title, but he hasn't won a championship. That group of people really just, I'm not a fan. If you're that group of people, just Just please don't be that group of people. Just don't. Just don't. Just here's why. Because you look at guys like, what's an example? Like, I can't even think of an example. You look at guys like Marcus Freeman, and you're like, well, he's a really good coach. Marcus Freeman is an exceptional coach. And then you have the people that go, well, what has he won? It's like, well, who cares what he won? Dan Marino in the NFL was the greatest quarterback to never win a Super Bowl. You're going to look at me and say Dan Marino's not a good quarterback? That's the same thing. So, again, Dan Lanning is a great coach. I put a poll out on my YouTube channel where I did a segment. I was planning on doing this segment, but I put a poll out on my YouTube channel about this segment that I was going to do. And it was, what is your approval rating of Dan Lanning? Like, do you approve of him or do you not approve of him? Well, the poll got like a decent amount of votes. 88% said yes, 13% said no. So Dan Lanning, I guess, is an 88% approval around college football fans. So Dan Lanning, 88%. People approve of him 88%. That is pretty good. I mean, that's close to 90. That's pretty good. So I would say that's pretty accurate. That's about where I would have Dan Lanning. So that makes sense. But yeah, the approval rating of Dan Lanning is high. There's a lot of pressure on Dan Lanning, though, in 2026. I do have to say that. There's immense amount of pressure to win. I get people that say, all right, I'm not an Oregon fan, but I have no ties to Oregon. But there's people out there that say, I'm an Oregon fan, and I just wish that Dan Lanning would do something with Oregon, other than a Big Ten title, which alone is pretty impressive. But a lot of people say, well, he just gets to the playoffs, but he can never get it done. He went 12-1 this year. He just can't get it done. I get where you're coming from in saying that, but I also look at him and say the guy's been so consistent in terms of winning. So Dan Lanning, in my opinion, is around that 88%. I agree with you guys, but there's a lot of, Oregon recruits at a top tier. There's a lot of, expectation. So, like, what the fan base vibe is, I wrote down a strong belief in leadership. They really do believe in Dan Lanning. That is for sure. They have a growing impatience for playoff success. That was one of the biggest things that I wrote down that really made me think, wow, that makes sense. There's a lot of impatience when it comes to him in the playoff because he hasn't gotten over that hump. He has yet to win. I mean, let's face it, he won 2 playoff games this past year, but he's yet to win that big playoff game. It's kind of like James Franklin. A lot of people compare him to James Franklin, but I just hate the argument of what has he won. I just hate that argument. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Dan Lanning. He's a great coach, don't get me wrong, and I think he's going to be a great coach for years to come. So yeah, 88% approval rating sounds just perfect for Dan Lanning at this point at Oregon. Sorry about that. I hit the mic. I was taking a drink of water. But all right, so again, two segments left to go. We're just nearing my favorite segment. It's going to be my favorite segment for a while to come, and that is going to be bold predictions. But first, we got to talk about Florida. We're going to talk about Florida football here in a second. Appreciate you guys for watching, everyone that is watching live. Could not appreciate you more. The only request I have, the only ask I have, well, I guess it's 2. Make sure you're subscribed. Like, it's just on the bottom of the video, there's just a little button. It's probably white for most of you. It says subscribe. Just click it. And then you're good. You can forget about it. You don't even have to continue watching. Just click the subscribe button. I'd love it if you continued watching, but just click the subscribe button and you can forget about it. And then like the video. Because, I mean, how hard is it? Just click the like button. Just click it. That's all. Just appreciate every like, appreciate every view, and appreciate every subscriber. All right. It is time to dive into our second to last segment. Florida program preview. Gonna be a fun one. All right. Where is Florida's program at right now? We're going to take a deep dive into what the future is at Florida. What's the quick program preview. We've been doing this segment for the past few weeks. We did Oklahoma State last week. We did Florida State and Michigan 2 weeks ago. So yeah, 4th episode of this series. What is the Florida program preview? What's the future? Well, in my opinion, the program they're still building an identity in consistency. The program needs to build a consistent level of dominance. They don't not dominate on any level. There's no consistency either. So the word consistency, identity, and dominance. They need to find those two things because Florida used to be a dominant program, used to be consistent every year, and they had an identity. They don't have any of those right now. So find maybe two of those this year. Maybe don't be dominant this year, but find an identity and find consistency this year. That's my goal for Florida this year. They have a lot of talent in terms of, recruits that they can bring in and portal players they've gotten. There's a lot of potential for Florida, especially in the recruiting department with bringing in new head coach John Sumrall. What lags behind? Like, what is the part that kind of pulls them back and keeps them lagging behind? And it is the on-field performance because they can get the athletes. DJ Lagway, Jaden Baugh at running back, Eugene Wilson at wide receiver. They had those guys this past year. Now, one guy went to the NFL draft and two transferred, so they don't have those guys anymore. But they had that last year, and they went 4-8. So, new coach, boom, you figured out the identity part. Mission accomplished. Now consistency. Work on consistency this year. Maybe get some dominance next year. We'll see. So that's kind of the context, the program context for Florida. There's a lot of pressure on them, like I said. Program, they're searching for stability. That kind of goes along with consistency is stability. And patience within the fan base is thinning. It's getting thinner and thinner, and you're just compressing it a lot more. But bringing in John Sumrall took that, that thin, you could just barely stick a paper in between there. Kind of, took a lot of the pressure out. You're back. You're here now. There's a lot of new hope at Florida. If he wins, they'll continue to, increase. But if he starts to lose, it's gonna get tighter. There's a lot of impatience at Florida. It's a tough job to take. But what is the fan base vibe? Something we go over all the time is what their fan base vibe is. Their fan base vibe is, demanding progress. It's something that we kind of just talked about, but they're demanding progress. And I personally think that Florida can give progress. I think Florida can make a lot of progress this year. The fan base is also confident in potential, but frustration with the timeline. I wrote those two things down. I do think that the fan base believes in what Florida can be, believes in what their identity can be, believes that they can go back and build a new version of Florida, a new dominant version of Florida. I do think that their fan base believes that. But they're also going back to the demanding progress. You need to make progress this year. A bowl game is a must-have this year. So those are some of the things when I look at Florida that I really see that need to, kind of come out of Florida. So that's my Florida program preview. It's a short one, but it was a preview nevertheless. Again, we'll probably jump into a next team. Get in the live chat or comment down below if you're watching this, replay. Let me know what program I should preview next and take a, vibe check of them. But also, let me know what program, but also what's your take on the program. And I could talk about that in the comments with you guys as well. So, yeah, that's my full Florida program preview. I think that they got a chance in 2026 to restore what their program can be. So, I think there's a lot of potential for Florida heading into 2026. All right, it is officially time to get into some bold predictions. I cannot wait. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 bold predictions this week. And then I have a few already lined up for next week. So if your bold prediction was not selected this week, I have more bold predictions, next week lined up. So trust me, it's a lot more lined up next week. So with that being said, sorry, I think the screen went black for a second. There's a few technical issues, but good thing that was in between segments. So that kind of saved us there. All right. Let's jump right into it. Viewer bold predictions. What are some of the boldest predictions that you think could happen in 2026 that you would be willing to put out in the world and either be laughed at the end of 2026 or get all the praise because it was correct? Well, we got 4 of them we're going to be going over. Also, before we dive further into it, if you have a bold prediction right now, go in the comments and type your bold prediction and let me know, and you'll be featured on the show. All right, we got 4 we're going to be going over. Also, if you did submit a bold prediction and it wasn't chosen yet, just know I'm still working through what predictions to pick. Your prediction will be next week. We're going to fit all the predictions in before the season. We're going to, this next month, we're going to be doing bold predictions, and probably until summer, we'll do bold predictions. So let me know your bold predictions, please. I really enjoy looking through these. All right, first one. What do we got? Johnny hit me up and said, LSU and Ole Miss miss? Or, sorry, I said that wrong. Let's just re-rack the balls there. All right, Johnny hit me up and said, LSU and Ole Miss in the SEC championship. He's predicting the SEC championship. Thank you, Johnny, for your submission. But he says that LSU and Ole Miss will compete against each other in the SEC championship. Well, I do have some news for you, Johnny. That is a possibility. But also, these teams play each other in the regular season. They play in like week 7, I want to say. They play each other. So I got to tell you, we'll know a lot by then. Trinidad Shambles coming back does help that, argument. And LSU with Lane Kiffin and, Sam Leavitt, I do think that also is going to be a factor for LSU. So this is not insanely bold. It's still bold, but it's not like a 10 or even a 9.5. So I have this as a 9 on the boldness scale. I do think that this could happen, but I do think it's going to be tough to see that happen. All right, next one was I don't even know who this was. All right. Oh, here it is. All right. Bama pulls on FSU. That is bold, my friend. That is bold. That's a tough one to see. Bama pulls an FSU, huh? Well, what is my take on that? I don't think Bama's going to pull an FSU. And by FSU, they mean like 2 to 4 wins, I guess I'm assuming. Like 2 to 5 wins, somewhere in that range. I don't think so. So I put that at a 9.8. I would put that at a 10, but there is just you know what? I'm going to go ahead and mark that down. I'm crossing that out. That's a 10. That is a 10 on the boldness scale. That is not a 9.8. That is a 10. I apologize. That's a 10. Bama pulling an FSU. Alabama pulls an FSU. That would be insane. I would go on here and I would put a clown nose on, literally, if Bama pulls an FSU. Because that's a 10. Let's be honest, that's a 10. I don't see that happening. But it definitely could happen. All right. Texas Tech, next prediction from Wild Child 17. He said, Texas Tech won't make the college football playoff this year. That is bold. That is bold, but it's not insane. Like, to pick someone that won't make the college football playoff unless it's like literally like the Georgia Bulldogs, it's not insanely bold. So give me that a 9.7. Sorry, that's not a 9 point. Give me that at 8.8. I read the next one. That's at an 8.8 on the boldness scale. I don't think that's insanely bold. Like I said, it could happen. So give me an 8.8. It's below a 9 because here's the thing. I mean, the Big 12 is most likely going to get 1 team in the playoff. They're lucky to get 2. So if Texas Tech loses 2 games, they're probably not making it. So at that point, you have an Arizona State or like a Kansas State or an Arizona or Iowa State or a whatever. You fill in the blank. That team probably would have made it. So Texas Tech not making the college football playoff isn't insanely bold. So give me that at an 8.8. Next was Bama going 10-2. Okay, you might be thinking, wow, it's not bold at all. That's a 7. Well, it's not. It's who he thinks they're going to lose to. Bama going 10-2 and loses to Tennessee and Chattanooga. That, my friend, is insane. That is insane. That is a 10 on the boldness scale. That we have 2 10s on one show. Give me a 10 on the boldness scale. Why are we ripping on Bama? We think Bama's going to be that bad this year? Someone said Bama's going to pull an FSU. The other person said that Bama's going to lose to Tennessee and Chattanooga. I mean, Bama losing to Tennessee is not that bold, but Bama losing to Chattanooga, that's bold, my friend. So give me that a 10 on the boldness scale. So, yeah, that is the bold predictions. We will see you guys next week for the second episode of Bold Predictions. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I also appreciate you guys in advance for submitting your bold predictions. So make sure you submit more, and they will be on the show. Appreciate you guys for submitting your bold predictions. And yeah, that is so far the bold predictions. We'll see you guys next week for the exact same segment. It's a fun segment to do this time of year. All right. That is not only the segment, but that is also the show. I appreciate you guys for watching. Again, we had some decent viewership actually. Like in terms of what the show has been producing, the numbers on tonight's show is not actually that horrible. So, again, we thank you guys for watching. We appreciate the heck out of you guys. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe. And yeah, we'll be right back here Monday. 7 p.m. Eastern time. We started a little late today, technical issues, but that will be resolved for next week. So appreciate you guys for watching. We'll see you guys same time next week. I will let you guys know again if I do something on like a Friday or Saturday. I'll let you guys know. It probably won't be a live show, but it could be like maybe like top 10 quarterbacks, how I kind of did that. It would be like a segment I do from my house. All right, so make sure you guys are subscribed. Make sure you like. Make sure you put down your comments, your bold predictions, whatever. You can follow me on Twitter at Wyatt Zang CFB. You can join the Discord. Just get connected to the channel. It's all free, by the way. So yeah, appreciate you guys for watching. That is the show. We will see you guys back here same time Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a great start to your week, and God bless.